Hey everyone, it's Doug. You already know that e-bikes are a great way to replace car trips and help end our reliance on fossil fuels, which are big wins for the environment. So if you're looking for an e-bike for your transportation needs, you'll want to check out Upway, which sells certified, pre-owned e-bikes, all at discounted prices. And as Maxime Renson, the head of Upway US puts it, reducing driving is a big part of what Upway is all about.
The core mission of Upway lies into sustainability. When you think about the US, where you have 80 to 85% of the car trips are below 10 to 15 miles, I think that's exactly the sweet spot of an e-bike, and you can cover all the use cases, because now e-bikes, they can transport pretty heavy cargoes, they can transport kids, you can go shopping, do the groceries with your e-bike.
Upway's commitment to sustainability goes beyond getting people out of cars and onto e-bikes.
Our mission doesn't stop there at just selling e-bikes. We are also on a mission to reduce waste. When you think about bikes that are returned, bikes that are replaced but never reused, taking dust in the middle of a garage, sometimes thrown away, and then you just don't want your business to create even more waste. Right now, we are actually reducing it at Upway.
By selling fully inspected and guaranteed used e-bikes, Upway keeps high-quality e-bikes rolling and in the hands of people who need them.
Sometimes you have previous season's models that have not been sold. Sometimes there was a bit of overproduction of a specific model. And then we get also demo fleets, marketing bikes, rentals, hotel bikes, the used bikes, that can be sold at a very attractive price with a warranty and good to go for the long run.
Whether you're interested in sustainability, getting out of a car, or just want an e-bike at an excellent price, visit upway.co and check out the amazing selection of certified pre-owned e-bikes ready to be packed up and delivered right to your door within days. And if you're in New York or Los Angeles, you can go to an Upway Up Center and check things out in person. Trust me, you'll be blown away by the selection. Listeners of The War on Cars can save $150 off any e-bike order over $1,000 at Upway with code WARONCARS. Reduce your dependence on cars and find the right e-bike for you at upway.co. This is Life After Cars.
It
Believe
is?
it? No, we haven't renamed the podcast, but this is a big day.
Yeah.
I'm Doug Gordon.
I'm Sarah Goodyear.
And as you are listening to this episode, whether you are listening to it on the day it comes out, the day after, or a year later, our book, Life After Cars, Freeing Ourselves from the Tyranny of the Automobile, is now out.
Yeah. You know, you wait and wait and wait for something like this, and it's been a 2.5-year process altogether from the time that we really decided we're going to write this book, wrote the proposal, shopped it around, then had to write the book when we were...
Yeah, that happens after you sell the book. You do have to write the book.
Yeah, the proposal, you can't just publish the proposal. The proposal was so detailed and long, and sometimes I was like, could we just do this? But yeah, and then just the whole writing of the book. And then there's another year after you hand in the full manuscript when you're going through the editing process, the copy editing, the fact checking. And now it's like, wow, it's happening.
Okay, so hold on to all of those thoughts. Let's treat this a little bit like a regular episode. Folks, it's going to be a little weird because we don't have a guest. We don't really have a subject for this episode other than the book is out. We're going to get into some of it a little bit, give you a preview, but let's do what we normally do. Sarah, first, some business.
You can buy our book, Life After Cars, Freeing Ourselves from the Tyranny of the Automobile, wherever books are sold. And I highly suggest you do buy it. You can also go to lifeaftercars.com to find out more about it.
And we are going out on tour. So by the time this episode drops, there will probably be new cities to this list that I'm going to read. The list of cities that we're visiting is expanding literally by the day. We're getting all these great emails from folks in advocacy organizations and bookstores around the country, in Canada, Europe, although we're not headed there just yet. But the book comes out on October 21st, the day this episode drops. 2 days after it comes out, we will be on our way to San Francisco for 2 events, one at the Litquake Festival in San Francisco, the other with Yimby Action at the Grand Theater in San Francisco. Then we will be at the Black Cat in Washington, D.C. on October 30th. We will be in Seattle on November 5th with City Nerd. That show is sold out, but you can get live stream tickets. We will be in Vancouver with Vision Zero Vancouver. We will be in Nanaimo, British Columbia, with Strong Towns Nanaimo. November 13th, Portland, war-torn Portland, Oregon. We are going to go in our frog costumes and we are going to read from the book. We're really excited to be in Portland. Love Portland. We're doing something at the Bike Happy Hour with Bike Portland. We're really excited about that.
Legends.
November 16th, San Diego. November 17th, Los Angeles, California. December 2nd, Providence, Rhode Island. December 4th and December 5th, we will be at 2 events in Austin. December 10th, Houston. December 12th, Denver. And that is just the end of 2025. We've got lots of stuff for 2026. I will not go through the whole list because that would be the whole episode. We also, I should say, have our show in Brooklyn on October 28th at the Bell House. I think it might be sold out, but check. They might release a few extra tickets as we get closer to the actual show. Again, that's Tuesday, October 28th, with an amazing special guest, Jeanette Sadiq Khan, who I just got to shout out her book, Street Fight, and all the work that she did to make this city and other cities, the cities that they are today. I don't think there's life after cars without Street Fight. There's definitely not life after cars without the work that she pioneered. And we're going to get into that at our live show. We're so grateful that she will be there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Jeanette's work and Jeanette's example really epitomize something that we talk about a lot in the book, which is the importance of political leadership and integrity, sticking to your guns, believing in your design, believing in the principles that are animating what you're doing, and being able to just stand and take questions and address concerns and say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and do this. And you're going to see that it's going to make life better for everybody. And there's nobody in New York right now who would say, oh, I think we should go back to having Times Square be just traffic lanes.
Or get rid of City Bike.
Or get rid of City Bike, or get rid of all the dozens of pedestrian plazas that have sprung up around the city.
Well, there are probably 2 people who believe that, Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Lewa, who are running for mayor.
And that's just a reminder, if you are in New York City, go ahead and cast your vote for Zoran Mamdani. I am going to just say it right here. We are not a nonprofit.
We can endorse. We're allowed to endorse candidates.
Yeah, exactly. And, and I think it's really important, if you care about these issues, to elect people who actually believe in things. And while Curtis Lewa certainly fits that description, he doesn't believe in the same things that I believe in. Andrew Cuomo apparently doesn't believe in anything, as far as I can tell.
He believes in putting his hands wherever he wants to put his hands.
That's right. And also in taking money from whoever has a lot of money to give him.
Yeah.
But I
Folks,
think
we told you this was going to be a weird episode. We are giddy with excitement that this book is coming out.
Yeah.
Let's finish up the business. We are also on Patreon.
We are.
At patreon.com/The War on Cars pod. If you support us, you make everything possible, the podcast, the book, everything. And our Patreon supporters get first dibs at most of the tickets for our live shows and also get special things related to the book. So, please sign up.
And I would just like to say that as much as Jeanette Sadiq Khan is part of what made Life After Cars possible, the book, I would like to say that our Patreon supporters certainly are a major contributor to what made this book possible, because not only have you financially supported the podcast and made it possible to produce the podcast over the past 7 years, But you have also been in constant dialogue and conversation with us. You've been telling us what you see where you are. We've been learning from you. And we also just feel so supported and like we're doing it for somebody and for a real reason. And that feeling is what keeps us going when things are hard or it seems overwhelming. And we do this on a shoestring, and the shoestring has been provided by our Patreon supporters.
You guys tie the shoes, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
We really, no. I always say that there are two very valuable things in every person's lives, and that is your time and your money. Your money, if you're giving it to us via Patreon, every last dollar, whether you're giving $3 a month or more, we appreciate it. Whether you give for 1 month or you have been giving from the beginning, we appreciate you equally. Your time, by listening to us, by wearing shirts out at ciclovias, putting up stickers, the time that you guys take to support us, that's a thing you can never get back. And it is probably the most valuable thing that you have. And we appreciate so much, whether, again, you've listened to one episode or all 160 episodes and the bonuses. Like, I'm so humbled that people do listen to us. So we're really, again, look, this is going to be a very weird episode. We have so many people to thank. I just want to say really thank you to every last person listening. I also want to say that part of the way that we produce the podcast is by thinking to ourselves, we have some of the smartest listeners of any podcast I can think of. We have planners, we have elected officials, we have people who are just hobbyists and who know this stuff at a high level. And we try to live up to the knowledge and understanding that we have to make a show that speaks to the people we're trying to bring into the fold, the people who know nothing about the subject, but sort of sense maybe something could be better, and all of you who are just pros at this in one way or another. And we're so grateful. When we get feedback on episodes, it's always constructive, it's always helpful, and it helps us make a better show. So I could go on and on about how much I value our listeners, but it wouldn't be enough, actually. It's really important to us. So thank you. Before we get too deep, let's give people a little preview of the book. We're going to play a little bit of the audiobook, Life After Cars. A love affair or an arranged marriage? For generations, automobiles have been promoted as an unmitigated technological marvel. If you question the role of cars in society, or politely suggest that cities invest in public transportation and protected bike lanes, you risk being called a Luddite. The auto-dominant paradigm rests on the idea that the problems cars create can be solved only with new and different cars. Electric cars, autonomous cars, cars that fly. Nothing could be further from the truth. Far from being anachronistic relics, 19th century inventions such as trains and bikes are the best tools we have for solving 21st century transportation problems. Organizing our entire transportation system around personal automobile ownership is a historical blip, one that was pushed on society by corporate and government interests and that does not truly represent societal and consumer preferences. Sometimes when we tell people we host a podcast called The War on Cars, we get a little pushback. That's to be expected when you take any position outside the dominant culture and point out its flaws. Sarah was once talking to a guy at a cocktail party who, after finding out what she did for a living, asked belligerently whether the podcast also covers all the positive things about cars. As if 100 years of car culture, billions of dollars in annual highway spending, and the marketing departments of every major automobile company weren't already taking care of that. Some critics dismiss us as out-of-touch urban elites. They point out that because we all live in New York, one of the few U.S. cities with enough density, bike lanes, and good transit to enable a comfortable, car-free lifestyle, we can't possibly understand the way real Americans live. Besides, people will say, Americans have a love affair with cars. Good luck trying to change that. In response, we like to point out that I was raised in a town north of Boston on a cul-de-sac with no sidewalks. After college, I lived in Atlanta, a poster city for car dependence, urban highways, and sprawl, and drove a Volkswagen Jetta to work. Sarah, a proud New York native, lived for several years in rural and small-town Maine, where she owned both an SUV and a 1973 Ford Mustang, cherry red with a black vinyl top. We understand American car dependence quite well because we've experienced it firsthand and rejected it. We know that's not an option for most people, even the people who'd like to make a different choice. Being able to relate to other people while still explaining that car dependency didn't win in a fair fight is part of our mission. Even the famous expression, America's love affair with cars, was a car industry creation, not some folksy saying that arose spontaneously. Peter Norton discovered that the phrase appeared in a 1957 Chevrolet ad before being popularized in a television special that aired on October 21st, 1961 on NBC. Called Merrily We Roll Along and starring comedian Groucho Marx, the special was sponsored by DuPont, which at the time owned a 23% stake in General Motors. In the special, Groucho says that our love affair with the automobile started long ago, and that it was a real love affair, one that changed our whole way of life. The phrase became part of the popular lexicon almost overnight. Produced the same year that Jane Jacobs published her seminal book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, and airing just as the highway revolts were gaining steam, Groucho's hyping of the love affair was a brilliant defensive ploy on the part of the automobile industry. For generations, that hype has successfully obscured the darker reality of a world built for cars. People over parking. On August 10, 2018, Madison Lydon, a 23-year-old tourist from Australia, was riding a bicycle on Central Park West when an Uber driver suddenly pulled ahead of her into the painted bike lane. According to news reports, Lydon swerved into the adjacent car lane to avoid the Uber and was hit by a sanitation truck. In an eerie echo of what happened 120 years earlier, Lydon died just 7 blocks from the spot where Henry Bliss had been killed. Even though it's against the law to block a bike lane, the Uber driver who obstructed Lydon's path was not charged. He wasn't even ordered to pay the fine for such an offense, which is $115. The driver of the sanitation truck, Felipe Chairez, was allegedly drunk at the time of the crash. Investigators found 3 beer bottles on the floor of his truck's cabin, and he was arrested and charged with driving while intoxicated, among other offenses. However, just as taxi driver Arthur Smith was acquitted after he claimed he could not avoid hitting Henry Bliss, the man who drove into Madison Lydon got off easy. Prosecutors ultimately dropped the main charge against Chairez, concluding that even if he had been sober, it wouldn't have made any difference because he was driving in his lane and obeying the speed limit at the time of the crash. He was released with just a $1,000 fine, the equivalent of about $27 in 1899. Madison Lydon's death spurred a wave of activism in New York, supported by her family in Australia. A year after she was killed, the New York City Department of Transportation installed a protected bike lane on 18 blocks of Central Park West. The full stretch, running 51 blocks, or about 2.5 miles, was completed in 2020. But for the most part, the story remained local, as most traffic deaths do. Even the coverage the protected bike lane did receive in the local press showed the way pro-car bias has pervaded mainstream media. In 1924, the New York Times published that haunting image of the Grim Reaper driving over women and children under the bold headline, "Nation Roused Against Motor Killings." This time, that same paper published a story headlined, "The People of Central Park West Want Their Parking Spaces. Sorry, cyclists." Increasingly, though, advocates for active transportation aren't accepting sorry as an answer anymore. Since Henry Bliss was hit by that taxi in 1899, cars and automobility have killed anywhere from 60 to 80 million people and injured at least 2 billion worldwide. After decades of weary acceptance, there's a growing global movement questioning the inevitability of the ongoing toll. More and more people are asking what the first warriors against cars asked. Why must we sacrifice our loved ones to appease the automotive gods? When will people matter more than parking? When will we say, enough? That people are asking these questions gives us hope, but it will take more than questions and hope to turn the tide. Hope is a discipline. We have to practice it every day, says the American activist and organizer Mariam Kaba. All over the world, individuals and advocates are practicing the discipline of hope by changing their own relationship with driving, joining up with larger campaigns to fix streets where they live, and staging direct actions that challenge the dominance and alleged inevitability of cars. There's just one thing every advocate for a better, less car-dependent future always finds standing in their way: the culture.
We'll be right back after this break. The seasons are changing and the weather is getting unpredictable. You can always be ready with a Cleverhood Rover 2.0 rain cape, which will keep you dry on foot or on bike through all the changes. Check out their wild new limited edition Stormy print. It's a colorful pattern based on NOAA Doppler radar data. The vivid, eye-catching pattern keeps you more visible in a car-centric world, even on the grayest and rainiest day. For 15% off everything in the Cleverhood store, head to cleverhood.com/waroncars and enter code LIVABLECITY. That's cleverhood.com/waroncars, code LIVABLECITY.
Okay, we're back. So Sarah, I want to ask you, I guess we'll interview each other about the book. How about that?
Fair enough.
Folks, we did a lot of planning for this episode. There's so much going on that we're just going to talk about the book.
Yeah, we're just going to
make it a little more authentic.
Yeah.
Tell me about your process of writing the book. What surprised you about the research you did or just the process of writing it? You've written a book before. You're a journalist. You've written lots of things in your life. What was different this time? What surprised you?
Well, the book that I've written before was fiction, so that was easier in terms of the fact part of it. But yeah, I've written countless thousands of articles. The thing that was different about writing a book was the sense of responsibility to really go deep, to really not just be writing what I could write on deadline in a week or 2 weeks or even a month, but to really sit with it and allow myself to go really, really deep on this. And a couple of years ago during the pandemic, I went to grad school and got a master's degree at the CUNY Grad Center in biography and memoir, which in a way might seem like it doesn't really have much to do with writing a book like this. But I had so many great professors and fellow students there with whom I learned a lot about research processes that as a journalist, frankly, you just don't have the time to do. And so I became much more comfortable with archival research, much more comfortable with library research, and just more comfortable with the rigor that you have to bring in an academic paper, right? And that just carried kind of seamlessly over into the process of researching this book. So I guess one thing that was surprising was what time can give you. Even though it's I think we wrote the book in about 9 months, it's a very accelerated schedule for this amount of work, but it still was so much more time than I was used to working with as a journalist that it felt like that time was a responsibility and a privilege that I had to live up to.
Yeah. For me, this part of the process of writing it, researching it, there was a piece of it that was both surprising and not surprising. So I knew that we would have to discard a lot. You do a lot of research, and sort of the act of writing is the act of editing. It's the act of discarding a lot of stuff, not being precious about stuff, kind of throwing out your babies, kind of stuff like that. The amount that I wrote and then just tossed because I'm like, oh man, I would love to put that in, but it kind of goes off on a tangent, or I have more important things to say about this, or the fact that this is such a fast-moving subject, but yet the process is so slow, and we were going to finish the draft of the book, and it wasn't going to come out for another year. I think I was just surprised by the amount I left on the cutting room floor. I think I could have filled 2 or 3 more books just by myself. Never mind all the stuff that went into the book in general that we left out. We had, at the point we started writing, 130 podcast episodes or more, not to mention 15 years of advocacy just on my part alone, not to mention your journalism, all the stuff that had gone into what made the book what it eventually became. It was sort of like this big hourglass, except that the top of the hourglass was bigger than the bottom, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And the process of writing it is that narrow part at the middle.
Right.
And so looking back, if I go back and look at my notes, I'm like, oh man, that was so great. It would have been great to put in, but it's gone now, and you just have to let it go. There's sort of an adage in my television experience that a project is never done, it's just due. But at the same time, I really felt like we created something that I can be proud of, that we can all be proud of, and that, sort of like I was saying earlier, we had to thread the needle of speaking to people who know everything about this subject, which includes a lot of our listeners, and the people we hope to reach and bring into the fold, which are the folks who know very little or nothing about this subject and might even be skeptical that the idea of life after cars is even possible in the way that we mean it. So, sort of a rambling answer, but I'm really happy with how it came out. I'm really, really happy with how it came out.
Can I ask you, is there one thing that you had to discard that made you particularly sad?
I had a vision for how I wanted to frame the chapter on car culture and bike lash that was different from how it wound up turning out. And I think credit to our editor, Megan, who rearranged a few things. I wanted it to be originally more of a sort of breakdown of bike lash and these are the 20 bike lash things that people say and how do you respond to them. Instead, we, at her urging and with a lot of work, you'll see when you read it, fed these things into a story so that the examples were more grounded in something you could see and weren't just theoretical. So if you look at my original bike lash and car culture chapter, it's much longer and I think probably a lot more boring, because I think it would have been good, but I think it would have only spoken to the people who want the tool of fighting back against bike lash and not the people who read a news story and just take for granted some of the things that people say. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I got so into some of the history stuff and off on these tangents. I did a lot of research about early women drivers driving across the United States and doing these kind of competitions and rallies, and that all disappeared. The thing I think I'm saddest about was that I had woven into the nature chapter the fact that Henry Ford was a really avid bird watcher. You'll see there's a lot of birds in the chapter about nature, and I was like, this is perfect. Henry Ford was obsessed with birds and loved birds, and his inventions were
also
really
obsessed with Nazis. But
yeah. Well, that made it in.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, so that was I was very sad. I was like, I found this elegant thing about him and his bird watching, and the editor was, Megan McCormick in her wisdom was like, I think you could leave this part out. Anyway, maybe I'll write about that some other day. Who knows?
Yeah. I think also the hardest part in a way was we were synthesizing so much research from other people, including people we've had on the show. You're talking about nature, Ben Goldfarb, his book, Crossings, is really, really great. Peter Norton, the early history from the 1910s, 1920s that he talks about in Fighting Traffic. And, it's again, a needle you have to thread between plagiarism, of just printing what these people have written before and saying, no, actually, this is really important. And we're not expecting every person who's reading this book to have read all of the other books. And so our job, sort of as podcast hosts, is to take all of this research and bring the best of it to you in a fresh new way. And so, look, our book stands on the shoulders of all of those researchers and advocates and people who've written books before. We mentioned Jeanette at the top, but people like Peter Norton and Ian Walker and Ben Goldfarb and like Alyssa Walker and all of these folks that we've had on the show whose journalism and whose writing is so important. So this is not a surprising piece of this, but it was fun to go back over that research and be like, oh man, like when people learn this piece of the history or this statistic about motonormativity, their minds are going to be blown if they haven't heard this before. That was fun to see again.
So one of the things people ask me about the book before it's out is, who is this book for? So I'm sure you're getting that question too.
Yes,
how do you
which
answer
we
that?
talk about in the intro a little
yes,
bit.
Yes. But yeah, we do itemize that. But sometimes, when you're just, or on social media, there have been people who've just reacted seeing the title of the book, Life After Cars. Well, there can't be life after cars. What are you talking about? There can be some negative pushback. So how have you been dealing with that?
I probably have been the person in the past who read a headline of a story and was like, this sucks. And then you read the story and you're like, this does not suck quite as much.
Yeah.
And so I always try to now be the person who, like, unless it really is like a crappy headline, as we see in politics these days, I try to reserve judgment until I read something. Some people, I think, just like with the war on cars or just like with any proposal to put a bike lane on a street, there are some people who are just going to reflexively say, no, our job as advocates, the way I see my job, is not to convince the no way, no how people, but to sort of just present an argument in a way that doesn't necessarily cause people to say, like, that's it, I'm giving up my car, but at least gets them to say, hey, I kind of see where you're coming from and I'm open to this argument. I think that's what we tried to do with the book. That's how I've been dealing with it. It's just sort of like, hey, read the book and let me know what you think. I think you're going to enjoy it. We're not actually making a no car argument. It's not really an anti-car argument. It is to a certain. Sarah's like, well, read the first few chapters. It is, but we are saying, like, there are people and places where cars make sense, like for whom cars make sense and where cars make sense. It's just that we've over deployed them. So I mostly I want the book to sort of like speak for itself.
Yeah.
I don't push back too much. I think we did a really good job of like hopefully disarming a lot of those people.
Right. And I think for me, as someone who, despite having been a journalist for a long time, who's gotten a lot of negative pushback about things that I've written for pretty much my entire career, I still have kind of a thin skin. I'm still a sensitive person in a lot of ways. And I can feel hurt if people assume bad faith on my part. It's not so much that I get hurt if people don't like my arguments. It's more if they act as if I'm not arguing in good faith and not arguing with a knowledge of, yes, this is a very autocentric society. I've had so many people tell me, wow, but do you know that the U.S. is a really autocentric society?
No shit.
I'm like, yeah, that's kind of why I'm here.
Yeah.
So, I think that for me, like, it has actually been helpful to write the book and have the book and to be able to say, like, I did my due diligence here and I put it into this book and we really have something to say that's very authentic and it's very closely argued and it's evidence-based and it's compassionate and it's thoughtful and it recognizes the reality of the way that most Americans and people around the world live. And I can stand behind that. And so that's helped me to sort of, it's almost like my thin skin now has a book to protect it.
Yeah, exactly. Look, it is one of those things, and you see this on social media where like people see the one post that you put up and just make all of these assumptions without going through your feed or even looking at your bio and understanding who you are. So that's just the nature of the world that we live in and the attention economy that we live in. So you have to deal with that. I feel like the book is an authentic reflection of who we are as journalists and advocates and podcasters and as humans. I think it speaks to the people we want to reach out to. Like you said, I think we are as compassionate as we can be towards people operating in a system that just doesn't work for most people. And I'm proud of what we did. It's really fun to see it out there in the world. We have our physical copies right here with us. We've signed a couple copies already. My wrist is getting stiff just thinking of the numbers that we're going to have to sign. It's so amazing.
It's incredible.
It's so awesome. I mean, I think we could ramble on forever just about how awesome this is.
But I want to ask you, so is there something that you put in the book that you were able to write that you're particularly excited for people to read, or you think might be a little surprised, without giving away too much, but something like a little nugget in there that you think is going to be fun for people or interesting in a particular way?
There are two. One is place-based, one is more personal. So the story about Ghent and how Ghent has transformed itself in a very short amount of time is probably my favorite part of the book. Selfishly, I went there and reported on it for the book. So it has a special place for me in terms of like the amount of work I did, what I experienced. And I wrote it in a way that is not just evidence-based, but is really like experiential-based, if that makes sense. And then there's a little piece about my daughter that I threw in there in the chapter about kids. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say much more than that because it's a really fun story and sort of sums up the argument we're trying to make in that chapter. How about you?
Yeah, I think for me, I really liked writing the chapter about nature and the effect of cars on nature, because that's something that's very easy for us to ignore, and that it's a really important thing to open our eyes to, and also to see ourselves as human beings as part of nature, that we're animals too, and the way that cars affect animals is the way that cars affect us. So that part is really important to me. And I think that the research I did for that was kind of life-changing for me in a lot of ways. But there is also a personal little nugget in there, which is, if you've ever wondered about my last name and its connection to the automobile industry, we have a little section where I explain that. So your curiosity will be satisfied. And I have researched the hell out of it, and I summarize it in this book.
So, final question, because we really could just talk about this for hours and bore the hell out of people.
And we'll have to talk about it for hours.
Yes,
so
on the road. Yeah. That's the part that I'm really looking forward to, is getting out on the road. Kind of our favorite thing about this podcast has been the people we meet in person, whether that's at meetups in Brooklyn or the few live shows that we've done. Now we're going to do as many live shows in a month as we've done in 7 years, meeting people in person and seeing the work that you're all doing to realize life after cars, whatever that means in your definition. That's been the best part. You know, we are just part of a movement that is really picking up these days and changing cities despite all the headwinds, the federal government and elsewhere. I think we're winning the culture war in a lot of ways, and that's been fun to see. And I'm just so excited to get out on the road and talk to people. So, really, final question. We sell the movie rights to Life After Cars. Who plays you in the big screen adaptation of Life After Cars?
Oh, my God.
I'm not going to pick for you because I just feel like I would say something, I don't know, I wouldn't get it right. Like, has anyone ever told you, oh, you look like, or this person is like you?
Not of anyone who would be like of the right age. I actually have been told that I remind people of Bette Midler, which has always been strange to me, and also Amelia Earhart, which is very strange to me. If Amelia Earhart were available to do the part, I would certainly...
Wait. How do people know, like, other than like those sort of like sped up black and white photos where she's like waving too fast? Like, how do they know what Amelia Earhart is like?
There are a lot of still photos of her where she looks very dashing. So I'm trying to think that that's what it is.
Bette Midler, I've never seen you in a fishtail or singing a song for beaches.
I don't think that. But there's an actor that I really like named Jen Tulloch. She's in Severance. She plays the sister.
She's awesome.
And she's pretty amazing. And I like to think that we have a similar vibe. And so that's who I would cast.
That's a good choice. I like
Yeah.
her. She's a good actor. For me, I've been told in some circumstances that I look like Giovanni Ribisi, if you know who that is.
Yeah, I can see that.
He might have more hair than I have now.
That's okay.
Might be a little skinnier. I don't know how old he is. I'm going to look this up. Sorry, folks. We told you we're doing this on the fly. Giovanni Ribisi. Oh, he's 50. So
Okay, there you go. He's age appropriate.
Born the same year as me, so
Okay.
age appropriate. So if you know who he is from like Avatar and other independent films too, I think that would be it. Yeah.
Okay, and then I mean, what would Life After Cars the movie be? I mean, obviously it would be different from the book. I would like to think that it's kind of a superhero movie in which we would, or our characters would, just go around the world making the world safe for life after cars.
I think it's the opposite of the Fast and the Furious. It's the slow and the courteous. That's Life After Cars.
Okay, good enough.
Okay, so the book is out. You can go to lifeaftercars.com. We really encourage you to purchase the book, obviously wherever it makes sense for you. Get it at your library. If you can support a local independent bookseller, please do. Many local indie bookstores are our partners on our book tour, and we're so grateful for their support. Also, if you are a Patreon supporter, we want to hear for a year-end bonus episode, what does Life After Cars mean for you? So we'd love for you to record like a 30-second to 1 minute take on that. Give us a specific example of something you've done or your vision for the future, and you can send it to us. We will send instructions for how to do that in a Patreon blast.
That's it for this episode of The War on Cars.
I think you mean Life After Cars.
Yeah.
No, we are not rebranding the
No,
podcast.
we're not. We're
War
not.
on Cars is a great name.
Still War on Cars. Remember, you can support us and get exclusive bonus content, pre-sale access to live show tickets, free stickers, chance to contribute to the podcast, and more by signing up on Patreon at patreon.com/thewaroncarspod.
And a big thanks to everyone who supports us, including our top contributors, Charlie G. of Human Powered Law in Portland, Oregon, Mark Hedlund, Virginia Baker, and Brandon DeCoster.
We also want to give big thanks to our friends at Cleverhood for sponsoring this episode, our friends at Upway for sponsoring this episode. Our sponsors are a huge part of what makes this possible, as well as is the Helen and William Mazer Foundation, a really important source of support for us.
Yes, thank you so much for your generosity.
This episode was edited by Samantha Gatzek.
And a big thanks to Josh Wilcox at the Brooklyn Podcasting Studio, who is sitting right here recording this episode. This podcast, this book, none of it would be possible without his expertise and his friendship.
Thank you, Josh. Our theme music is by Nathaniel Goodyear. And yes, Nathaniel Goodyear is related to me. He is my son, and I'm very proud of him. Transcripts are by Russell Gregg. Thank you, Russell. Our logo is by the great Danny Finkel. Audio excerpted courtesy of Penguin Random House Audio from Life After Cars by Sarah Goodyear, Doug Gordon, and Aaron Naparstak. Read by Sarah Goodyear and Doug Gordon. Copyright 2025, The War on Cars, LLC. Audio copyright 2025, Penguin Random House, LLC. All rights reserved.
I'm Doug Gordon.
I'm Sarah Goodyear.
And this is The War on Cars.